Thank you so much for joining me on this session today. Good morning and good afternoon from wherever you're coming in and tuning into this session. My name is Cara Buscaglia, and I'm so excited to be speaking with you today, and really going to be really talking about how COVID is affecting consumer conversation and what that means for your brand. And just want a little housekeeping before we get started. Just to let you know, I'm really excited to be in this session and give you some insights of how to navigate this complex landscape that we're currently in and what that new normal is. But if you have any questions for me, I will be doing a Q&A at the end of this session. So please do not hesitate to just put all those questions, any and all of them, in that chat box, and I'll be sure to get to them at the end. But thank you so much for joining today. So before we get into the real meat of this, the insights, I always think it's really important to understand who Talkwalker is and who I am as well, and what kind of data you're looking at. So Talkwalker is a listening and analytics company. We actually empower brands to optimize their digital strategies and understand conversation at scale, and what we call what is intelligence, which is the convergence of market research, social data, and customer experience all in one unified platform to pull out those insights and really leverage them to make strategic decisions, whether you're on the brand or agency side. We are a global company. We have 6 offices worldwide in San Francisco, New York, Frankfurt, Luxembourg, Paris, and Singapore. So, global visibility there. I think what makes Talkwalker truly unique is we have a team of over 350 experts, but a third of those are actually data scientists and engineers, which allow us to be the true leaders in AI and innovation that we are, and allow us to leverage all of this data for whether it's from online, because we started out as a web crawling technology using the latest advancements in machine learning, or with our partnerships with over 20 social networks, blogs, and forums. We leverage AI to make sense of that data, to make your life easier, to make decisions and drive impact and democratize data across your organization. And we do that by specializing in 3 core key areas, which is protecting, measuring, and promoting your brand. So additionally, I want to also recognize that we've also been mentioned and recognized as a leader by research firms, particularly from Forrester to Gartner, just so much more. So, we are very proud of some of that recognition that we get globally. Now, I'm probably wanting to know who you're speaking to or who you're listening to right now. My name is Cara Buscaglia. I lead the global solutions team here at Talkwalker. I've been at the company for nearly 4 years, and before that, I was actually leading an insights department, leveraging Talkwalker as my platform of choice. So I've always been a believer in this technology, and my team is really responsible for working with our largest clients to help them understand the digital landscape, leverage the information, and map their challenges back to the platform. So really excited to really be sharing these insights with you today, because something that's really been important to us during all of this is providing everyone on the call here today, our customers, our community, with insights to leverage during this unprecedented times of everything's changing and what that really means. So really excited to be speaking with you today. So we can all agree, if we were all in the room together, I'd already ask you to raise your hand and say how you've been impacted, how many have been impacted by COVID in some way, shape, or form. But we all can understand that times have changed a little bit. 2020 is different than the years in the past, and things that you used last year for strategy planning maybe don't apply this year, or maybe they do in different ways. So it's really about understanding that this digital landscape has changed, not for better or for worse. It's just different, and we're all adjusting, and we're all in this together. And it's really important to leverage data and insights to understand that even further. So hopefully give some ideas here and talk about some how brands and consumers have been impacted by this. As the world is changing, so are your customers that you're regularly talking to. Just looking at this quick McKinsey report, you're able to see some of the data that's been pulled around this from a survey standpoint around shopping. So consumers overall are being more mindful of where they're spending their money, where they're saving their money. They want discounts, and they're also being a little bit more particular in what brands they choose. We've seen a huge rise in brand purpose, ethics, emphasis on sustainability. These are all factors that are going into your customers' decisions of why they're buying, when they're buying, and how much they're spending on a day-to-day basis. So you really need to navigate these different trends and understand these different implications of what's happening right now. And so hopefully today we'll give you some insight into that. And also during this time, we're also seeing new trends. I know I've been actively on these trends. I mean, we're seeing more people eating and cooking pizza. I'm from Buffalo, and I make a delicious homemade pizza. It's something I love to cook all the time, and I've been doing a lot of it in quarantine. I haven't really participated in the quarantine beard challenge, but a lot of people are. They're sharing their pictures on social, they're communicating. There's also been a rise of bread, and I don't know about you guys, but I've had a bread schedule, and I know if you're making bread, you know what that means. So it's really about seeing all of these conversations happening, seeing these new different challenges at home, and making the best out of home by enjoying a quarantini, so to say. There's so many trends that are happening, and we've never quite seen such a transformation of the way consumers are digesting information and acknowledging it. So we really understand that, and we really want to help you make sense of this and deal with some of the challenges that are happening during this difficult time and these changing times. And some things that we commonly face, especially when we're talking to our customers, is centered around these particular challenges. So something that we always talk to our customers about is data within silos of an organization. And I'm sure you're thinking, yes, we've heard this before. This is nothing new. But this is the first time that we've really started to see that not only are people talking about data living in silos and acknowledging it, but people are trying to change that. They're realizing that communications, consumer insights, marketing, they're all related. And to be able to make decisions, you need to be operating in a single source of truth of information. So that's something that customers are dealing with, and it's really important to have a unified platform to be able to do that. Additionally, what we're seeing also from a challenge perspective is the digital landscape. It's constantly changing and growing. Who hasn't dealt with a Facebook or Instagram API change of what data is available? Or how are we all dealing with the rise of TikTok during and new emerging platforms during this time? I mean, talk about the digital landscape changing and giving an opportunity for TikTok to really have an opportunity to be at the forefront of consumers, and they love TikTok. They love digesting it. They love reposting it on other channels as well. So that's something you just have to stay up to on this and learning this new platform. And I can't tell you how many new brands I've seen get on TikTok during the pandemic and during COVID, because they realize that it's where the younger generations are. I think this is something that is hard, for a lot of organizations as well, as they're struggling to take action with data and really drive impact. That's not easy to do, and it's really important to have easy to use solutions and frameworks, and having your leadership support that you're using data and social data to make those decisions, to actually not just say we're using data, but actually make changes. Maybe you make a product. And we'll dive into examples of that. Maybe we design a new flavor, a new opportunity to be convenient, because we know consumers are seeking convenience during this time and a healthy snacking option. So using the data, you can easily make sense of that to help drive, use data to drive impact. And then finally, democratizing data. That's something we just want to get data into the hands of all of our employees so that they can socialize it, use it, and make it easy and fun to leverage this information to work smarter and not harder. And that's the key here. So how can you use this information to understand your customers? That's something We do a lot with at Talkwalker. We're always trying to figure out different ways to provide our customers with solutions that answer specific questions. And particularly what we've been doing a lot of this time is segmenting the data so that you can easily understand your customers better across different industries, and you can leverage this information to inspire and shape your strategy. So I'll be going through and covering a lot of different industries here. So please, again, don't hesitate to just put your questions in that chat box here. But something that we'll really dive into, and we're just even kicking it off with the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry was extremely impacted by COVID because obviously, we're in the search for a vaccine. And pharmaceutical companies are really driving that. So what we do at Talkwalker to make sense and understand how this industry has evolved over time and analyzing these conversations at scale is we actually leverage a lot of different visualizations to tell the story of data. But one of them particularly that you're looking at right now is called conversation clusters. And what I want you to think about with conversation clusters is augmented analytics. So if you know, it's an easy way to surface known and unknown issues or trends around a certain topic, brand, or trend as well, or even category, which we're looking at right now. We have various different category insight solutions. So we're able to look at these different evolutions of conversation over time. And what we can see just by looking at this visualization very easily that pre-COVID, we're actually seeing people talking about pharmaceuticals and just access to Medicare and healthcare. They're talking about different diseases and pharmacies and prescription fraud and things like that. But as COVID has happened, there's been just a tremendous shift in conversations. There's been drugs that have been discussed to cure COVID or at least alleviate some of those symptoms. There's been a rise of conversation about employee health, personal protective equipment to help really drive the conversations in this area. Another important aspect is being online and accessibility. People want to avoid leaving their houses, right? There's a lockdown happening, and people want to purchase things online, and so there's a lot of emphasis on online accessibility. If we look at here, we also look at supply chain, how that impacted because the regulations and things like that. So just this is a really easy visualization to see how your industry has been impacted by COVID. And we'll be going through a lot of those throughout this presentation. Additionally, if we look at the consumer goods industry, oftentimes especially during COVID, I can't stress this enough, how important it is for our brands that we're talking to understand different audiences. And Talkwalker has a proven framework of over thousands of pre-built audiences that our customers can leverage to understand different insights associated to different audience groups. Because right now, it's very crucial that you don't speak at consumers. You need to speak with them. You need to be relatable. You need to speak in the tone that they're speaking. You need to use their verbiage. And that's how you really will generate more personalized content, which is really important in strategies today, especially in your digital communication strategies. So what you're looking at here is a comparison of what millennials are talking about versus parents in the consumer goods space. And it's something that you can easily look at. So like the way we're pulling together millennials, it's not just on Twitter, it's across Instagram, Facebook, and also forums as well, so that we can easily dissect this information and know what these different groups of people are caring about. And we're not just using text verbatims, we're actually built AI models to segment these audience conversations. And further, we're not just using text, we're using image and video because we have that capabilities as well. And we can look at these millennials and parents and what they care about. And we can actually see that parents have been more concerned about their children, personal care products, and really the well-being of their families and getting the right sanitary products and available for them. But there's just an overwhelming concern about parents, the health and well-being of their family, and the implications of what's happening in the world today. While millennials are more actually they've gone through a bit of a cosmetic phase during this time, which I thought was really surprising when we did this analysis, because, I didn't know that a lot of people were actually, using beauty products because they're not going anywhere, right? But especially in the cosmetic industry, they take up around 60% of those conversations of all millennials, but they really skyrocketed during this time. And that's really because people are going to creating more makeup tutorials. They're wanting to share their beauty routines, and they're loving talking about beauty, and they're searching for and striving for this connection. So really, really great insight there. Additionally, looking at another conversation cluster, looking at the education industry. This is another industry that has been really impacted by this. Over the past month, we've seen a huge surge in all sorts of online availability, whether it's courses or webinars or events like this one that we're here today. During the lockdown, people have really been searching for, professional insights or a way to gain industry expertise or knowledge. And what we found on analyzing these conversations is that so many people are trying to educate themselves, and they're looking for more events. They want industry specific webinars, energetic webinars. They want business webinars. They're looking for webinars and education as a way to do mental health. I know so many people have been talking about online classes that a lot of educationers have really kind of spearheaded, but people are really, really looking for more opportunity to learn during the lockdown. So I think that was really interesting. If we move to the next industry, which is esports, this is fascinating to me how esports has really evolved. This is really evolved because if you remember at the pandemic, all sports were canceled, and we didn't know when they would come back. And that really started the rise of esports, because people were still desperately searching for that connection to a sporting event, to have that camaraderie around rooting for someone. It was a nostalgia that people really love, and we really saw that. Particularly Fortnite, Call of Duty, Animal Crossing all had really high moments that they really, they really were inspired by it. And what I found, what was really interesting about this, is that during all this esports, it gave brands a unique opportunity to actually sponsor during games, whether it was sponsoring a player and having live sessions on Twitch of rooting for the games, or if it was actually a brand that was actually sponsoring an actual character clothing or a product that they were consuming during that game. This was all a new opportunity and unfamiliar and uncharted territory for brands to explore that you wouldn't traditionally think would. So it gave a really good opportunity to really generate a lot of conversations, really leverage live streaming from gaming, and make it competitive and turn it into entertainment, which people were so desperately looking for, especially during this time. And it also even opened up a whole new betting opportunity. So a lot of people were doing a lot of different esports betting. So all stuff that we uncovered during this data, especially during tournaments, people were betting on their favorite players. So I think this is a trend that isn't going to go anywhere, and I think you'll see more creative ways that brands are inserting themselves in major games. Another thing that changed because of COVID is it gave a lot of food delivery service opportunities to rise. I really think we've seen a bit of an even bigger digital transformation. There's a larger emphasis on, not having to go to stores anymore, right? People don't really want to go in and have to wear a mask or even kind of engage and have an opportunity to spread the virus or get it. And so we've seen so many more consumers talk about turning to deliveries, and even more brands offering delivery options, whether it's from a small business, a large business, a grocery store, or anything like that, more traditional retail stores that were more brick and mortar that asked people to come in, were trying to get creative, whether it was doing it direct and developing different delivery partnerships, or partnering with the Instacarts, the Uber Eats, the DoorDashes of the world. And it was really something that people really capitalized on. And I think this is a trend that's also going to stick around, and people wanted to just stay at the comfort of their home, safe, and really see these different delivery options pop up at their availability. And additionally, what we've also seen come up in the data is people really wanted discounts. Who doesn't want discounts? If you see in that data there, it does, when we're talking about food delivery, people are really, really looking for those discounts. And I think that goes back up to that McKinsey graphic that we saw in the beginning there. That is, shows that people are not only looking for convenience, which we've also seen in the data, they are looking for discounts and on demand. So food delivery service options, or retailers that, or grocery stores for that matter, who are doing that on demand, convenient, and offering coupons or discounts, they are seeing the most success during this time. Additionally, something we can't forget, I think this is also going to change completely. Just think about the rise of contactless payment, something that's been around for so many different years now, but now it's realizing what a big deal it is. Think about just the sheer act of your credit card. You pass your credit card to your coffee barista at Starbucks. You pass your credit card to that retailer store when you're making a clothing item, or you're passing it to that restaurant waiter or waitress to make that payment. Is that really, is that really necessary? And, I think this is going to be a consumer behavior that we'll see change for, I think, the foreseeable future. And people have really been turning to this contactless payment option. And I think it really is, a way for us to see this continue. And also more mobile digital payments like PayPal has just been growing over time, and you can really see these conversations evolve during the pandemic. And people have really been starting to want and need contactless payment as a safety precaution, and also it's digitally secure. Additionally, we've also seen a lot more rise of people using more online ordering and charity donations. People are really searching for that. Here we're also looking at PayPal, who has seen incredible growth during this time period, where they not only have seen a steady increase of online and social digital conversations, but also a steady increase of their stock price. So with Talkwalker, we can actually incorporate any structured or unstructured data, particularly whether it's sales, customer research studies, SEO data, or particularly for this particular example, stock price. So you can see those correlations to understand what is causing those different shifts. Now we're going to look into the travel industry. And the next ones, I'm going to show you some very different conversation clusters, because I wanted to show how the changes have happened in the travel industry over time. So we're going to look at three different areas. We're going to look at pre-COVID, during COVID, and what we're calling the prolonged after period of COVID. So just starting off, what we want to see here is this is the travel industry pre-COVID. Before this happened, travel and tourism was flourishing. People were traveling to Asia, to Europe, all over the world, and sharing their experiences. They loved having street food. They loved going on cruise controls. They loved learning about travel through videos. There was just a growing, sustainable tourism environment. And there's a lot of conversation around culture that people were also talking about. Additionally, from a concern before COVID, people were a little bit skeptical around some of the plane crashes that were happening. There seemed to be a little bit of distrust in the travel industry around malfunctions with airlines that we're also seeing coming up, and all around aircraft operations. So that was really interesting. During, we're looking at February 15th to June 15th, let's look at how the conversation evolved. So we're seeing a lot of countries that are opening and closing their doors for travel, and that can be very hard to navigate from a consumer standpoint and from a safety standpoint. There's a lot of job cuts around this industry. People are still really looking for safety. And then one of the things that, oh my goodness, the insurance companies were dealing with, and consumers were dealing with, is significant rise of how to deal with flight refunds and travel insurance, because so many people planned far ahead and they didn't know COVID was going to happen. So these are all things that we saw during that period where COVID really was really kicking in globally, and people were really dealing with those issues. There was also conversations around innovation. So since people couldn't travel, what were they doing? They were actually looking for virtual ways to do tourism. That was one area. Sharing photos and travel, that was something that people were looking at. People were also looking at different other ways to travel, whether it was road trips. That's something we were seeing come up, like outdoor and road trips. So just different ways to stay engaged. Then from a prolonged aftermath of how we're labeling it, you can see that people are still in a little bit of complete fear from traveling. There's still a lot of travel risks that are happening. There's testing on borders that are happening, and there's a lot of safety precautions with airlines. And there's more of an openness, I feel like, to travel, but by plane particularly, that we saw coming up in the data. But there's also conversations about what the long-term financial implication is. So there's a lot of stimulus checks that are being distributed by the government around tourism, and overall just a genuine what is this going to look like before the vaccine? What are the risks? What are the precautions? How do you keep the tourism industry thriving, which is a huge catalyst for cities, and making them attractive for people to come, and giving money to the cities through small businesses. Additionally, people are also getting a little creative. They're going to parks for tourism, which I think is a great way that people are looking for traveling to destinations while still being safe. And they're also just acknowledging the risks overall. But people are going back. And so the more you can think about that, if you're in this industry, the more you think about that from this industry, the better. Additionally, now moving into the e-commerce side of the business, e-commerce is another industry that was completely impacted by COVID, and we're going to look at those different phases as well. So the e-commerce industry pre-COVID, things we're talking about were more around innovation and the time leading up to the outbreak. So people were really talking about the different launches of platforms, new products, social media ads, really cool Amazon gadgets, Black Friday still, customer care, makeup purchases, and so much more. They're also looking a lot to optimize their SEO strategy on that level. So that was something that was coming up. Still online discounts. So something we're really excited. Also, people I think people have always been really always looking for a discount. That's something we've always commonly seen, but I just think there's a bigger emphasis now, which we'll dive into, which is now looking at the immediate aftermath of COVID, which is really about people seeing how important e-commerce is during this time. You're seeing a lot of retailers close their doors. We're seeing supply chain disruption. There's so much uncertainty, especially around supply chain and factories. No one really knew what to do, especially with precautions. They were trying to figure that out, and that caused a lot of major CPGs and other brands to have to shut down their supply chains. And so they had to think creative. One of my favorite examples of a brand that did this well was PepsiCo actually launched a whole online pantry to be more direct to consumer. There's just a rise during this COVID of being creative of how we can get your products into the hands, and there was also just a whole scare during this unprecedented situation is that people were really searching for essential goods and purchases. There was price gouging. There's a lot of difficulty with managing that, especially during this time, and also just there's a lot more emphasis on those online tutorials, which I talked about earlier. And then finally, the aftermath of this is really, I think, just the continued emphasis on online shopping, online orders, online shopping, online e-commerce webinars, changes in e-commerce, people using AI more. Crypto payments have been coming up and skyrocketing a lot, giving an opportunity for even to purchase more goods online, whether it's even art or memorabilia. Crypto is having a big moment right now. And I think you'll just continue to see more traditional brands that maybe were brick and mortar emphasizing e-commerce direct to consumer, and brands that had stores maybe closing those to just have this digital presence. Additionally, we're seeing a rise in TikTok and YouTube through makeup and beauty tutorials. So it's really about staying up to date on these different issues, especially if you're e-commerce. Speak to your consumers. I can't stress that enough, and really understand what matters to them. What are their behaviors? How they're changing, and how that can be applicable and used in your business. Additionally, we'll quickly look, and I want to wrap it up so we can get to some questions, but just to look at analysis, because I know we've talked a lot about industries, but overall we wanted to look at how Coca-Cola was impacted by COVID and what happened. And so we're actually able to see, we work with a lot of brands, and they're able to use social listening and online data to help signal and understand different financial changes and around performance. So integrating stock price is something, again, we saw we often do to understand business impact, whether they've increased their stock by 40% and really correlated that to positive sentiment. That's something that we've noticed a lot, that if you look at the percentage of volume change and correlate that to sentiment, it is actually a direct indicator of what sales are to come. So that's so important that you could see that as that evolved, particularly in July and August. Coca-Cola did a lot of different new brand initiative, new products. They have a new sparkling water called AHA. They saw a big significant lift and a lift in stock price as well. Additionally, something that I thought was really special that they did during this pandemic, they actually created a meaningful campaign around the great meal. And it was about, during this time, we've seen just such a rise in people searching, especially now towards the prolonged effort, leveraging our emotional framework. People are searching for hope and humor. And there are actually, when we searched silver linings, people are just, really, they're ready for optimism. They're ready for that. And I think Coca-Cola just hit the nail on the head with tapping into all of those and creating that empathy and people wanting to just have these family moments during this time. So I think it was incredibly important to build that brand messaging and really resonates with the time that we're in. And also got over 80,000 views on YouTube. So really great way to leverage data to understand that people are searching for hope, humor, and love and empathy, so that you can create a really great campaign that is just making consumers feel good. And Coca-Cola usually hits it out of the park, and they did it again. So everything tastes better together. And I think we can all agree that those family moments that we have now are even more special and crucial than ever. So to summarize it before we go into some Q&A, I think what we try to do at Talkwalker is we're a listening company, and we want to listen. We want to listen to our customers. We want our customers to listen to their customers, and just always keep your ear to the ground and hear what they have to say, because they're your greatest assets. They're the way to build that community. They're the way to understand how to unlock this complex environment that we're in right now. Discover, stay up to those different trends, understand what's happening on not only around your brand and your competitors, but look outside that. Look to your audiences, look to your category, what's happening from an opportunity, from a trend perspective. What are those millennials saying versus parents? What are foodies saying over fitness? The possibilities are really endless to be able to analyze that information, benchmark it, measure it, report on it, and activate. The power is with you if you have the right data in place to make those decisions and drive impact during this organization, and just put the customer first and be empathetic, have that brand purpose, but do it for them and really hear their voices. And I think that if you keep that in mind, it will really lead to a really impactful strategy. So that's all I really wanted to summarize that here. So I just want to say thank you for joining the session. I'll open it up to Q&A. And as a reminder, if you want to learn more about Talkwalker, we are actually have a booth in the Talkwalker exhibitor area, so go check us out. We have some great Talkwalker employees there that I'm sure would love to show you more information, share insights, and help you learn a little bit more about understanding the voice of the customer. So thank you for joining. Now I'll open it up to questions. So let's see what the first question is. So how effective has aircraft safety procedures been in dealing with the fear of travel? I think their aircraft industry is dealing with a lot of challenges and concerns, and I think that's something that we've seen a lot in the data, and I think they're being pretty effective at it. And it's all about mitigating risk, communicating, listening to what consumers want safety. They want less crowded aircrafts. They want people to wear masks. And I think they're doing a really great job of making people feel comfortable, because as you saw in that conversation cluster, people are really kind of talking more about their excitement around the travel industry. And feeling more comfortable with getting on a plane. Now, if those borders are open up, that's the different story. But I think that's really happening. Another question, I love these questions. Thank you guys so much. Is really around what kinds of new businesses are rising up from the data that we've seen. Definitely, we've seen a lot of food deliveries continue to rise, and also different, like what I talked about before, different new e-commerce opportunities, and also gyms, at-home gym equipment. Peloton has been having a moment. Equinox came up with a new gym. There's Tempos. There's so many different virtual gym classes. I think those are, and incorporating tech, that's really having a problem and are having an opportunity and a moment in the space, is amongst others. Those are just a couple that come to my mind. And then finally, where do I get our data from? Good question. So just to the last question of the session, it's really about leveraging the data that Talkwalker has in our platform and then our customer data. So started out as a web crawling technology using the latest advancements in machine learning. We are a global company pulling data from over 187 languages, across 196 countries. And then have partnered with over 20 social networks, from Twitter to Instagram to YouTube, all about having insights at your fingertips and being able to leverage the voice of the customer to make sense of that in AI, and doing it across text, image, and speech, and video as well. Can't forget that. But like I said, thank you guys so much for joining the session today. I hope you learned a little bit something, and I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to speak with everyone on this fantastic event. I hope you have a wonderful day.